Hey, folks! We are here for the launch of a new playlist. This one's called as AI for Leaders. It's a battle-scarred view of building AI systems, and I'm going to tell you who exactly it's for, what this playlist is going to contain. Well, who am I, and what's the goal with this playlist? Yeah. So let's get started. So who is this for? Well, if you're going to be blamed for AI systems failing, then hey, this playlist is for you, right? So no matter which of these 6 categories you fall in, there's going to be something of value for you in this playlist. You could be a tech lead, so leading existing teams, engineering managers. You could be at a CXO level where you're trying to do AI strategy for your organization, right? You could be a product manager, a head of product. You could even be a founder who's trying to build a AI first product, right? Or you could even be a senior data scientist who is looking at pivoting into a more AI first or machine learning first role, right? If you fall into any of these categories, then this playlist is going to add a lot of value for you, because it's going to condense, I would say, the last decade of all of my learnings. Well, not just myself, but our team and several other people in this space who have done research, who have built production grade systems, so on and so forth, right? So why is this important, right? Why do we need something separate, AI for leaders? There's already a lot of content on AI from a technical standpoint and from several other points of view, right? What's the requirement here, right? In my eyes, it's pretty simple. This is actually not about making AI smarter, right? That's not what this playlist is about. If you want to know how do you build better AI pipelines, want to get your model to be more accurate, right? You want to understand more types of models and which can be used where and stuff like that. I'd say from a real technical depth point of view, then there's other stuff out there for you, right? This playlist is about ensuring leaders and managers, entrepreneurs, all of you are less surprised, right? So if you look at the spectrum of AI education out there, I'd say it's largely divided into 2 parts. One is we have a lot of folks, including ourselves, who talk about models, the theory behind them, the algorithms, tools, benchmarks, right? And there's a lot of hype and jargon and all of that. Here's the latest of the latest that's going on, right? So there's all of that part of AI education that's out there. And from a managerial standpoint, we're also seeing that there are a lot of MBA programs who are having some AI curriculum, some AI flavor added into it, right? Unfortunately, the what are these management programs do add, and you'll see that a lot of this playlist we have in fact created by looking at stuff from top B schools. From we have done a survey from Harvard Business School. We looked at all the articles and stuff that's been published from Harvard Business Review, Harvard Business Insight, from Wharton, from I don't know what other schools, from Indian School of Business, in fact. Yeah. So we've had a look at a lot of different schools and how they are adding this AI flavor, and we have found that there's not enough messy technical depth, right? You will probably know how to converse, have a conversation about AI, but do either of these, the current split that we see, help with superior outcomes for leadership teams? And I don't think so, right? There's a lot of talk that's going on about, hey, are we in a bubble currently, AI bubble? Because one company is, investing in another company. They're all giving deals to each other. And everybody is wanting to be AI enabled, but it's not necessarily showing in the top line and the bottom line rather of these companies. So how do we ensure these outcomes are achieved? And I currently feel that all the stuff that's out there right now, which is just talks about hardcore theory, real theoretical depth, or very surface level content on the managerial side, neither of which help in achieving superior outcomes, right? So that's where this playlist comes in. Okay, so through this playlist, here are 4 things that we want to emphasize. Number 1, quality of decision making, right? In leadership, I think this is critical across all aspects of leadership and management. But from an AI standpoint, how do you ensure that your decisions are of high quality, right? That your downside is taken care of, right? So that's one aspect that we will try to emphasize time and again. Organizational risk. So as you try to build a lot of these AI systems, what are the kind of risks that you have to manage from a systems point of view, from an impact and consequence point of view as well, from long-term system health point of view. So once these systems are built, then what, right? How do you maintain these systems, right? All of that has to be factored into how these systems are designed, in fact, right? And finally, there's a lot of human and AI friction that's there. The whole debate around is AI a tool or is AI a teammate, right? So understanding about in this space of evolving dynamics between humans and AI, where do we fit in? How can all of us make the best out of it, right? Now, who am I, in case you guys don't know? So I'll give a 2 minutes quick intro about myself. So I'm Abhinav Venkat. I've done my bachelor's and master's in the space of machine learning itself from IIIT Hyderabad. And post that, I was a research scientist at Stanford University, right? So I spent a good chunk, I would say, of my academic career doing a lot of AI research. This is all the way from 2014, I would say, till about 2020, right? About good 7 odd years. Throughout this entire time period, I've had the good fortune of publishing a lot of papers in top conferences. So conferences such as BMVC and ICCV and ACPR, stuff like giving talks, and it was wonderful, right? Really high quality work. And yeah, so that's a little bit on the academic side. During my time in these institutions, I was actually felicitated with Qualcomm's Innovation Fellowship, which was in fact felicitated by the Government of India, Department of Science and Technology. Very recently, we've been doing a little bit of work on LinkedIn, so also gotten LinkedIn's top machine learning voice. This is a lot on my academic career and my research career, so to speak. Post that, of course, I was an computer vision scientist, and across, I would say, pretty fortunate. A couple of wonderful startups in Silicon Valley. So Aplara and Sunmall. So they were in the e-commerce space and the virtual clothing space. And these are pretty early stage startups, and I was pretty much in charge of building their AI pipelines, getting them into doing the research, innovation, and also getting them into production, right? So this was again a few years back. So what am I doing right now? I am at 123 of AI. Well, I'm the founder of 123 of AI, and we are here to help folks pivot into AI roles and bridge the gap between what we see as folks just working on toy problems versus real world messy machine learning systems, right? There's a tremendous gap there, and that's where we kind of come in. So we help you pivot, and we also ensure that you can be the 2.0 version of AI engineers and scientists and decision makers in the AI space. Yeah, so that's a little bit about us, and I'm sharing all of this so that it's more or less, I would say, from a point of view of humility, because myself and my team, which is again consisting of mentors and folks from a lot of Ivy League universities and big tech and startups and so on, we have had the good fortune of a lot of these opportunities, and we obviously do see that there's a lot of overwhelm and anxiety and misinformation and a lot of stuff going on in this space. And we thought, hey, this is a great opportunity to share what we have done over the last decade through several things in 123 of AI, and of course this playlist as well, right? So I'd like to talk a little bit about the outline of what this playlist is going to consist of. So largely I would say 4 sections or 4 phases to it, 3 or 4 phases to it. where the first phase is going to be about giving you frameworks and mental models, right? You as a leader, you could be a technical leader, a manager, right? You could fit into any of these roles, right? So your ability to code and your ability to look at data and understand data and work with those low level tools might be different. All of you might be different depending on, what your current role is at, right? But the frameworks and mental models for decision making in AI, on how to build better systems and how to budget for the right amount of time and cost constraints and inference and latency and all those complicated stuff in terms of how you can take decisions in AI, are more or less the same, right? So we'd like to give you a framework on what can and can't AI do, what are the typical components and the life cycle of modern AI systems, right? It's really evolving at a quick pace. So what's that life cycle like? The modern and classical methods of building systems. So there are different ways in which you can build systems. There's a classical, more traditional way of doing it, and there's also a modern way of doing it. And both are still, the classical way is still valuable, although there's a lot of hype more so about the modern way. Okay, I'm not going to delve deeper into this discussion, but then I'd say that there's a high amount of value in both of them, right? And there are use cases for both as well. Then how do you build an AI roadmap for your product or company, right? How do you iterate on building superior systems, right? So oftentimes in the space that you're in, you might be seeing that, hey, just giving you an example, right? There's an open source model out there, and that works in a different domain. You would like to adapt it for your domain, right? And the first time you adapt it for your domain, you make the required tweaks in the data and so on and so forth, and make that model work for your problem. But unfortunately, the accuracy is not good enough because, hey, your data is very different from the data on which that model was originally built on, right? So how do you then iterate on making this specific model that you have far superior for your problem, right? So frameworks and mental models and processes to make all of this happen, right? And then of course there are a lot of associated constraints, right? Right before you even build a lot of these systems, there are so many aspects that you need to understand in terms of just setting very right requirements, right? So a lot of discussions around privacy and bias and safety and reliability, because all of this is going to affect, in fact, organizational risk. If something backfires, it's going to be traced back to you, right? Right at the start, I mentioned that this playlist is largely for folks who will be blamed if anything goes wrong in the space of AI, right? So very important set of stuff here, and it's not going to be from a higher level theoretical standpoint. We're going to look at a lot of practical tools and methodologies from a technical point of view, yet abstracted away enough such that a leader such as yourself can understand it, right? So phase one's on frameworks and mental models. Phase two is something which I personally love, which is why a lot of systems in fact fail, right? Messy ML, which is machine learning and AI in production at scale, interacting with real user data, evolving user data, right? So there are a lot of trade-offs, for example, that leaders must understand, right? Super interesting topic. We'll dig deeper into that when the time is right? Stuff like practices that leaders must absolutely demand from their team, right? Common caveats of failure. Fun story. Part of my previous startup, when we were building this virtual try-on clothing system, we spent almost a year and a half trying to build a far superior pipeline, far superior models. And we found out that after spending a year and a half on doing all of that, fundamentally the data was the problem, right? And we had to go back and rework and get far superior data to make any sort of an impact, right? So there are 100 such use cases you would see of folks like myself who have tried a lot of things, broken systems, and then have realized, hey, this is now the wrong way of doing things. Here's the right way of doing it, right? So there are common caveats of failure which will save tremendous amount of time for you and ensure that you get the outcomes you're looking for, right? So examples. How do leaders misframe problems? why most AI projects die before even training starts, right? Um, Data itself is a product today, right? It's not a it's no longer a byproduct. Okay. Um, why your AI accuracy in production collapses after week 3, right? You built a system, but all of a sudden you're seeing that the pipeline's working fine, right? And you've put it into production, users are using it, and everything looks rosy. And then suddenly 3 weeks in, you're noticing that there are a lot of complaints coming from users and customers that the system is not accurate enough. But when you launched it 3 weeks back, it was good enough for them. What's changed, right? Why, say for example, 92% accuracy can still destroy your business, right? So there are lots and lots of caveats to ensure that you design these systems by taking all these, I'd say almost getting a 360-degree view of the requirements and the process to ensure that you can get the AI outcome you are looking for, right? Phase 3, I would say, is around generative AI and human intervention, right? I'm adding this as a separate special phase, primarily because certain things have changed thanks to the Gen AI space, and how you build systems has also changed, as well as how you factor in before building a system. How do you design the system, and I'd rather say the pipeline has changed, right? So in the LLM era, where you, for example, should be considering cost as a first class design constraint. So we'll in fact look at working through actual numbers on what it might cost to build a system with certain considerations. If you, let's say, have to make it run on your phone, but you're looking for a certain kind of accuracy, right? So all this fun stuff about how to keep humans in the loop. We'll also look at decoding a lot of the hype so that you understand which tool to use when is it an overkill to go towards X or Y, right? What is the easiest from a, say, proof of concept point of view to try, and what does that process of iterating on that minimum viable product, so to speak, look like, right? So all of that will decode the hype. There's also some fun stuff which, so well, I'm talking about largely vibe coding and AI pipeline, right? So oftentimes, as somebody who's a little bit more of a technical leader or gone into these sorts of leadership roles, you might not be in touch with writing code, even though you might have done it several, or data, for example, interacting with data, even though you might have done it maybe decades back, or maybe this is something new that you want to get into, right? It has so happened that there's so much amount of AI generated code. In fact, fun stats is that at 123 of AI, and in fact at several companies, almost 50 to 70% of code is AI generated, right? There are, of course, a lot of issues with that, which we are all dealing with, but the quality of outcomes with AI generated code is significantly going up, and it has significantly gone up just in the last 12 months, right? We are in January of 2026 when I am shooting this video. Just 1 year back, we were not using any AI generated code, and I would say today 50 to 70% is in fact AI generated code, right? And there's a lot of stuff to be done on top of that, but it does give us tremendous amounts of leverage. And I think everybody can access that leverage. English language is perhaps the only medium, and frameworks and processes is the second filter that you have to add on top of that to ensure that you can effectively develop something, right? So vibe coding, this is going to be super interesting because earlier on, somebody who is and this is just a random thought that I had, right? Somebody who's a manager or a technical leader might have a design document, right? Or might have a rough sketch of what their system should look like, and then they would give it to the implementation guys to build it up, right? Today, you can vibe code it, give them an initial proof of concept that would have probably taken them 1 month to build. In about 24 hours, you would have done all of that and given them a very initial, almost I would say a proof of concept, right? And it's fun. It's fun to build stuff. It's rewarding. It's rewarding, in fact, I'd say, yeah. So if you have not been in touch with, let's say, building things, particularly from a technical standpoint, then we look at from an AI pipeline perspective, right? Not just general software, but an AI pipeline perspective. How do you vibe code an AI pipeline? Look at a lot of different case studies, because that will put you into the shoes of decision makers who are trying to build different kinds of systems. So you might already be an AI expert sometimes, but maybe your expertise is in recommendation systems, right? Hopefully our attempt is we're going to expose you to all different kinds of systems, different kinds of problems that folks are facing, put you into their shoes, and then see, can you actually get some interesting insights from that, right? So that's phase 3. And then phase 4, I would say, is business and AI, right? Now, because you're obviously in a leadership role and this entire playlist is tuned towards you, there's a lot of very interesting reports, and I probably mentioned it earlier, right? So we did a lot of research taking a look at what, say, Harvard Business Review is in fact talking about, how leadership is changing with the infusion of AI, and we have our own interesting take on it. And obviously from a technical standpoint, having built a lot of these systems, I think my view and would be slightly different. But it's going to be pretty interesting having this discussion around how leadership is going to change in the age of AI, and how you can in fact leverage AI for business transformation, right? Because that's the eventual goal that you're looking for. You can also do it for personal transformation, but hey, from a career standpoint, from a business standpoint, what are the kinds of outcomes that you can get? How can you leverage AI? Building a lot of AI native companies, right? This is also super interesting, because if you think about it, and while we have an outline of what you want to talk about in many of these different topics. So if you think about how you currently do things, right? AI can optimize things in 2 directions. It can do it from a internal employee and process standpoint, and can also do it on the customer facing standpoint, right? There's obviously a lot of interesting stuff going on the customer facing standpoint, but on the process and employee facing standpoint, on how you conduct your day-to-day operations of your companies, all of that is going to change. I don't know who's going to be the person who's going to bring in the tech to make that happen. It could be you. If I have some time, I'll maybe give it a little bit of a dabble, but I do personally believe that the way we do things, I'm not just talking about like technical implementation, but I'm talking about even communication. There's going to be a significant jump. Like, so for example, a lot of people use the Scrum method. They use agile processes, right? All of this is, in my opinion, there is going to be an impact that AI is going to have in making many of these efficient, or they might evolve into something else, right? So you might end up building an AI native company. And what I mean by an AI native company is a lot of your internal processes are optimized by AI, right? Imagine that you don't have to go to a meeting to give an update and waste your time listening to everybody else give their updates, where all of that, there's for example an assistant or something that's already sitting on your system that automatically updates the dashboard, seeing where you're at and what challenges you're facing, and collates what somebody else is facing, and triggers saying that, hey, somebody else is also facing this, you can contact XYZ. So imagine all of that happening, right? And from a process standpoint, there's going to be so much amount of evolution. So that's what is building AI native companies. So there's going to be some discussion around that, because for sure it's going to make a difference in terms of, you're going to save time, right? And time is our most valuable currency. Going to save time, it will make things much more efficient. So pretty interesting stuff there. Leading an AI-led workforce. So again, a very interesting topic. And yeah, so that's largely on phase 4, right? And we'll obviously dig deeper into all of these. Like everything else, that's a DNA of 1 to 3 of AI. Things are going to be in depth, research backed. We're going to look at a lot of different papers and studies, and focus on active learning, make you take decisions. And I know we are on YouTube, but then hey, as much as possible, our attempt is going to be to impart that skill set, make it interesting for you. To sort of summarize, right? I know it's been a long video for just a launch, right? But I thought it's pretty important to emphasize how things are changing and every aspect of an organization has to evolve. Every spectrum of the organization, right, at every level has to evolve. And this is AI for leadership, right? So the eventual goal is that right now we are seeing a lot of AI ambition, right? We want to bridge that gap that's there between the AI ambition and AI accountability to ensure that you can produce the kind of outcomes which this wonderful piece of technology promises, right? I've been in the space for 10 years, and it doesn't surprise me on the kind of impact it's having. And I think I'd say, at the tip of the iceberg. Things are going to be very, very different in the next 2 decades. Um, it's very tough to even predict 5 years, but then here we are at. So this is AI for leaders, and I'm super excited. So what we're going to try with respect to this playlist is that we'll try to be as consistent as possible, about 1 to 2 videos per week. Try to wrap up all that we want to convey in about, let's say, 3.5 months, more or less. So every week you'll find a video or 2 popping up. So what you need to do, if you like this content, and if you think this is going to be valuable to you, make sure to hit the subscribe button so that you are notified when the next video drops. All right. So with that, I'm super excited. Catch you in the next one, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.